Hugh Pickett, Impresario, Dal Richards, a band leader, Thora Potts, actress and singer, and Barney Potts, actor, comedian, and band leader. And thank you all for joining us. Is it nice all being together again?
Well, we've never been apart.
Oh, is that right?
We've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Dal and Hugh, you even went to high school together, and
Yes,
here
we
you
did.
are,
High school. Yes,
side
we
by
did.
side again.
Only he graduated and I didn't.
Oh, is that
I was asked to leave by Tom
show
Alsbury.
business earlier than I did.
Yeah, show business consisted of ushering in the Columbia Theater.
And Thora and Barney, of course, you've been together for many, many years, since you were 16 years old.
Yes, that's when I met him. But I was born in Victoria, and I went to high school in Victoria. And but Barney was born in England.
Ah.
Yes, I was born in Harrogate, Yorkshire, England. By gum, you know, they're kicking their lugger with tykes all the time, you know, all them people.
But all of you have been involved in the entertainment industry in Vancouver for many, many years, and we only want to go back as far as about the 1940s today, because we'd need about 2 hours
gosh,
to...
you
I know.
I'm out.
Let's begin with the 1940s, and what I want to do is ask each of you in the early 40s what you were up to in Vancouver, and maybe paint a picture of what Vancouver was like at that time. Hugh, let's begin with you. You were working, I believe, with Gordon Hilker's theatrical agency?
Yes, Hilker Attractions in 1946, right after the war, I went to work with Gordon. And before we go any further, let me say that Gordon was the impresario of Vancouver. Everything that came after Gordon was second. He was the first. Before him came a woman called Lily Laverock from the 30s, but she was Meshuggah, and it was an amateur business. He was a pro, and he did the most and the best that was ever done here.
And you went to work for him?
Yeah, as a press agent, about which I knew nothing at the time, but he put up with me and taught me, and I handled the PR on the Theater Under the Stars the first year and right through until it closed.
Now, how would you describe Vancouver at that time, if you could choose a word to describe what it was like?
Well, I'll tell you, we were working on two things. In the summer, the Theater Under the Stars, which had 4,000 seats. Also, we had good weather then. You could depend on a summer. On the nights that it was good, which were most of the nights, we were sold out at $2 a ticket. That was the top price, 4,000 people. And no government gave us a nickel. The city, the provincial, or the federal. There was no Canada Council. It all came out of the box office from the public, who loved the Theater Under the Stars. Well, apart from that, Gordon had series running all over British Columbia, so I was traveling in the days when I wasn't in the park for him with people like Lily Pons and John Charles Thomas and U.C. Burling, names that are forgotten, but were great, great opera singers.
We're going to talk more about Theater Under the Stars in a little while, but I guess there were other things going on in Vancouver besides Dal. For example, that's when you started at the Hotel Vancouver, wasn't it, in the 40s?
1940, to be specific. Prior to that, we'd been doing club dates in Vancouver mainly, and a little bit of work at the old Palomar Cabaret. Funny places like the Winter Garden, which used to be an amusement pier, would you believe, at English Bay, and had a dance hall on the end of it as it projected out into the water. But mostly 1940, I associate with the Hotel Vancouver and the Panorama Roof, because that was our beginning as a national name, if you want to call that, because we were on CBC and broadcasting nationally, and all of a sudden I got attention from all over the country I didn't know existed, really, to a degree.
How important was that entertainment to people then, and what sector of the population actually came to hear you perform and came to hear the rest of you perform?
Well, the segment of the, it was a very social thing. People used to wear tuxedos to the Panorama Roof, and any occasion that was an occasion, a birthday, an anniversary, a celebration of any description, the roof was automatically the place to go. And I associate the 40s with the roof for that reason, and the fact that I was getting established as a national name, and at that point Juliet joined us, our first vocalist. We were beginning many things. We were beginning stage shows at the Orpheum Theater. Ivan Ackery, that venerable character who was so many years the manager of the Orpheum.
It sounds very alive. Was it vibrant? Was it really growing in the 40s?
There's a lot of growth in the 1940s.
Yes. Thora, you said that you actually sang for some of the time as a vocalist with Dal.
Yes, I did. I filled in on Wednesday nights for Lorraine, who had her own television show, and I had a lovely time. He's a great man to work with because he's a wonderful orchestra leader and a great help to any
And a good
vocalist.
dancer, too. I can attest to that. Last time he was on, he danced with me. But you must have been juggling a lot of things at that time, Thora. You
Well-
were Wednesday nights doing that. But what else were you up to?
Well, I did a lot of things because I had started out doing a lot of radio shows, and Barney and I were together long before that on CKWX on doing a thing called the Gloom Chasers. He'll probably tell you more about that. But then in about 41 or 2, I started with Harmony House. Now, you've probably never heard of that, but it was a very famous show in BC, and it went trans-Canada on the radio. And we did it live from the Orpheum Theatre. And we had a great big orchestra with Ricky Hislop, and Juliet's sister, Suzanne, was the vocalist, and Pat Morgan was the male singer, and I sang lead with the Nabobettes.
All of you have chipped in some photographs. Hugh, can you tell us about this top
Yes,
picture?
this is a picture taken the day that Famous Artists Limited was established in Vancouver. This man on the left is from Columbia Artist Management. The one on the right is from Hurock in New York. And they came here when Gordon Hilker left the business and Holly Maxwell and I took it over. They came to sign the contracts.
Of course,
that's me.
you, and there's
That's
Holly. Now,
yeah.
Holly had worked for Mr. Hilker prior to
Yes, she was his secretary, and she really started the company. She got me to do it. I really didn't intend to go on with it, but God has been going since 1950.
It's a good thing you did. Let's continue to look at what else you've brought here. Ah,
That's Juliet, of course, between Wally Peters and me. And I guess that would be 1942 or something. Julie had been in us a couple of years at that point. Before I became modern and had horn-rimmed glasses.
same tie, I think.
So we would be at the Hotel Vancouver Panorama roof at the time.
And what year did you say that was?
I think 42. It's pretty close.
You look more like your brother there than
Yeah.
you do generally.
And here we go. These are, we'll just look at.
Well, that's the Strand Theater. Now, that's where famous artists presented many of their attractions, like the Ballet Russe and the opera companies were there. Many of the most famous artists in the world performed at the Strand Theater, which it was a movie theater originally, and famous players kindly rented it to us to do these things. They didn't have to, and that's something that's different today, too. In those days, this movie company, who really were giving up a lot to rent the theater, really cared about what was going on in show business, so they rented it, and they rented the Orpheum, and we put all our shows in, mostly in the Strand.
Well, that's certainly the sense I get, that there was a lot of love, labors of love that went on in
Yeah.
This was in 1940, and you can tell the patrons of the roof were wearing tuxedos, and that's Trigger and Roy Rogers.
Of
or
course
Roy
it's
Rogers.
Trigger. We all know Trigger.
And Q. Roy Rogers was appearing at the Beacon Theater, and this was the extent to which a press agent would go to get some crazy publicity. After between shows at the Beacon, they brought Trigger in a van to the rear of the Hotel Vancouver, put him in a freight elevator, brought him up to the panorama roof, and had this ridiculous picture taken.
You know what's interesting is, who are these people on either side of
no
you
idea.
and?
Don't
but
know.
they're just people who were there. But look at the way they're dressed.
They were just dancers, guests at the roof that evening. But,
And that's the way people dressed to go dancing.
oh yeah,
It was really a
Thora,
big
tuxedos.
Yes.
Elegant.
Big night
we all
out. It was
dressed
a big
formally.
thing.
See, if you went to the roof, that was the place to go. I mean, you could go to other places, but the roof was you really used it as an event and dressed.
Now, before we go on, you have to tell this story about this photograph, because I think it's a terrific story.
Okay, now here we have, this is a cast of Tobacco Road, which played at the State Theater. This is Bruno Gerusi, who was one of the stars of the show. It was directed by Dorothy Davies. In a scene in the play, written by Erskine Caldwell, this character urinates behind a tree. You can see absolutely nothing going on. The city of Vancouver thought it was a lewd and lascivious show, and we were all arrested. Put into the can overnight and taken out in the morning. The case came to court, and we won it. But Erskine Caldwell came to Vancouver and was on the side, of course, the cast, and made an absolute fool of Gordon Scott, the city prosecutor. The whole place was in hysterics, laughing, as
Well,
was the
didn't you
press.
do your fair share as well?
Well, I got charged with contempt of court because Mr. Scott said to me, "Do you find this lewd?" And I said, "No." He said, "I don't think you'd find anything lewd." I said, "Yes, I find you lewd." And I got fined $25. That's the 4,000 seats empty at a Saturday morning orchestra rehearsal. Most of the time they were full at 8 o'clock at night.
They were. It looks much the same.
Yep.
There
Doesn't
it
look,
is.
no, not quite. There's only about 1,500 seats there
Oh,
now.
I see.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's not the same at all.
But there's no mud.
No mud.
Squirrels and things running across the
Yes.
stage even back then.
Sure.
What's this?
There is Thora. There is Barney.
Oh, just a second. We've got to get that again. Did we get
Right
it?
there. That's Thora. That's
Neat.
Barney, and that's Lorraine McAllister. That is Lois Smith, who was dancing in the chorus, who became the prima ballerina of the National Ballet of Canada,
Yeah.
Incredible.
under the tutelage of Ada Broadbent.
Isn't that something?
What show
Whatever
is that?
became of Lorraine McAllister?
I think that show.
She happened to marry Dal
She
Richards.
married Dal, and I wish you would brought her. Let me see. What show was that? Was the
That's
question.
Anything Goes.
Anything Goes. I think that there's another one of Anything Goes. There we are.
That's right. Now that's Barney, Thora, and Roma Hearn, who has done many, many things throughout Canada. That's Ada Broadbent, who was the choreographer and sort of, she and Jimmy Johnson really did the Theater Under the Stars direction.
Well, she wasn't that good, Hugh. She never could teach me to dance.
Now this is.
That is Bob Goulet. Now, this is the very first job Bob had outside of Toronto, where he did a stand-up television song once a week on a show. Now, we paid him $350. That's Finian's Rainbow. Betty Phillips was the lead. And when he came to town, he had a great voice and he was good looking. But that's where it ended. He couldn't act, he couldn't walk, he couldn't sing. And Ada Broadbent, after 4 or 5 days working with him, said, listen, you can't act and you can't walk. But she said, you got a real cute ass, so I'm going to take you uptown and buy you a pair of tight pants and we're going to sell out.
She made Robert
She
Goulet.
created
Isn't that
character. This has a very distinguished cast in this picture. If you get close enough to see, that happens to be Queen Elizabeth. Now, she came from a dinner at the University Club, and she was in full royal raiment with a tiara and the jewels and the whole thing, and sat outside and watched this performance, which was one of the worst shows we'd ever done. It was Countess Maritza or some awful thing.
Were either of you in it?
No.
No, it was a dreary, terrible Viennese operetta. She loved it because, it was not, she doesn't have any interest in the theater, but this was music that she understood and knew. So, and she had a great time, and she asked to meet the cast. That's why they're lined up on the floor. The reason that she didn't go backstage was the mounted police wouldn't let her, because it was too dangerous.
I wonder, Hugh, what celebrities were in the 1940s and 50s? Were they different from today?
Well, they were much more intelligent, for one thing, because they went to work and learned their trade. They didn't start selling beer in a pub in Liverpool and the next month earn $20 million. I mean, they really learned. They went to school in Rome to learn to sing. Plus which, they all had a sense of humor. The people that reached the top in this business, well, look at this.
Thora's laughing over there. I'm just wondering.
They all had a sense of humor. They took their business seriously, but not themselves. Today, good God, everybody takes themselves so seriously. They want champagne, caviar, which they throw at each other at the end of the show. It's sick.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Hugh. Why don't you tell us about this?
Well, that's Marlena Dietrich when she was here in Vancouver. That's the old airport, not the new one. She came here to do her show and did it for 2 days at the Queen Elizabeth Theater. And the next week, I went with her to Milwaukee. And after that, I was with her for 9 years as a friend, not as an employee. And we're still very close. She lives in Paris. She does not go out. She hasn't been out in 3 years. She has leg problems. She's 83 years old. She's as bright as a button. This was about 67, because, no, 65, because she did Expo. And now she has one claim to fame in Canada. She was the only act at Expo that made money. Everything else cost so much that it didn't make any money. She did. She made a profit for Gordon Hilker, who was running Expo.
Here comes
That's
another
Elvis when he was here before he got into
Now, where does he fit
trouble.
into this?
Well, I presented him at the stadium, the football stadium,
Yes.
during the PNE one year. That is a younger me, and that is a certainly much younger and handsomer Elvis. And he was a very nice person, and so was Colonel Parker. I just thought they were great. They cooperated, did everything they were asked to do.
When we talk about celebrities earlier, you blocked the recent or the present celebrities in one sort of category in the old ones. Where does he fit?
No, he and the Stones do not fit in that category at all. They were absolutely respectful of what they were doing. What they did after the performance was their business, but they did a performance. They knew what they were doing. They were there on time always. They didn't let the audience down, and they didn't make ridiculous demands.
Hugh, you are kind of slowing down a bit in as much as you're only booking people who are good friends of yours.
Well, yes, I've had this business now from 1947 to today, and it's not what I really wanted to do, what's happening today. Last Sunday we had Vincent Price doing his Oscar Wilde, which was wonderful, had him in 4 cities. And from the 27th of June to the 3rd of July, we have Mitzi Gaynor at the Queen Elizabeth Playhouse.
Now, look at that woman. How
Now, Mitzi
old
is
she?
50 years old. She works on her body
Yes.
every day.
Most
Look at
definitely.
that body. Isn't that something?
Incredible. I should be so lucky, and I'm
Yeah.
27.
You will. You'll do it.
Do you think so?
Certainly.
You don't get...
Kids, this is the good old days right now.
You agree?
Right.
You bet.
Thank you
I
so
like that.
much. Hugh Pickett, Dal Richards, Thora Anders Potts, and Barney Potts, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you,
You've made it a
Maria.
wonderful morning.
It was lovely.
Bye. We'll see you later.
Wow.